Welcome. Check this out. Power BI what if scenarios. Today I'm going to show you how to build this. You will have a full understanding for how to create Power BI what if scenarios, how to integrate them, and what they are. So first, let's check this out. What is a what if scenario? Well, what we're going to do is show you how to build something that will essentially allow users to calculate a change based upon a parameter they select. And we'll do that in an elegant way using this slicing technique across a gradient spectrum of values. This is a top tier tutorial. So let's look at an example. What if the return percent was adjusted to some percentage amount? So say we have a total number of sales and we want to see just what would happen if things change. Well, in this example, we can simply drag a bar, change the percentage that will be calculated. We'll see the entire model is updating in real time. The values are changing, the parameters are changing, the table's changing, the KPIs are changing. I'm going to show you how to build this. It's awesome. Let's dive into Power BI Desktop. If this is your first time tuning in, hit subscribe. We have a lot more content coming. I appreciate your support. Let's get into it. Let's go into Power BI. Let's go. All right, so here we are. This tutorial is going to start with the Power BI service. I just published the solution. I'm going to talk you through what it's doing, how it's working. We're going to demo it, show it so you get the concept of the end. Then we're going to jump into Power BI Desktop and build it. So why are we in the Power BI service? Well, because when we publish something, it's how our users are going to interact with it. And there's a level of difference between the experience of working with something directly in Power BI Desktop versus the service. And that's going to be very important when we're creating this really sweet what if the return percent was adjusted scenario, because this is a collection of multiple visuals integrated together. Let's see how it works first so we just all have the same baseline. Then we'll jump into Power BI Desktop and build it. Okay, so we have a data model that simply has sales per store and there's a returned amount. So in the bottom left, we'll see their stores, how much they sold, how much they returned, and then the net. The goal of a what if scenario is to say, well, what if our return percent wasn't this, but it changed? And this is the coolest way to do it. Simply, the users will drag, change the percentage, it's going to recalculate, and we can see it adjusted. What if it was adjusted to 30%? Look at these KPIs are changing. Well, we're gonna have more returned. Our net sale is gonna go down. The change between the net sale here and the net sale at the top is significantly different, $137,000. Okay, well, what if we integrate with just stores? You can see all this changes as well. Maybe I wanna change a certain percentage and see how that works with the store. It's incredibly cool. So we are gonna build this sucker today. I'm gonna show you everything you need to know for how to build it. But the experience is incredibly cool. Just look again at how the return numbers are changing when I change this. There's a gradient of the color that aligns with the color of this spectrum for what if the return percent changes. There's all kinds of cool things happening here. This is the kind of stuff that will take your dashboard to the next level with interactiveness, because it doesn't just function, it looks good. This looks cool. And I'm gonna first go into Power BI Desktop. We're going to get the foundation. We're going to build something that functions. Then we're going to make it look good and allow you along the way to change it as you see fit. So now let's flip back over to Power BI Desktop and start looking at the guts of this. What's important is that there's also this file is published. So what that means is you can follow along. In the description of this video, there's a link. Open it up to GitHub, download this file, and follow along. Let's go to Power BI Desktop. Let's go. All right, so here we are in Power BI Desktop. Now you can see the experience is just the same, or the layout's the same. The experience of this is a little bit different, where if we drag it here, you'll see some things pop up, and that's because there's a lot of things stacked up together for this. I'm gonna show you how to build it. So first, open this up and let's follow along. It's also important to note there's a chart view. So if you wanted to see more simplistically how this can change a chart, how it's interacting in real time, this is switching up. That's pretty cool to see as well. There's a lab tab that's kind of a copy, so you can just start building as you see fit. But the goal of this, if we go to the lab tab, will be to create this visual in the middle. There's all kinds of cool formatting things happening in this table, so you can check that out. I'll be happy to explain it as well. Maybe we'll dabble into a little bit of it, but the core is going to be this. So we're going to literally recreate this entire thing using the process I'm going to show you. So let's just get started. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new calculation that does the return percentage for us, essentially creating this right here. So what does that mean? How does that look? Well, what you do first is to get the foundational element added is we have to go to modeling, new parameter, numeric range. This is the start. So what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to create something that's going to make a value, a dimension that we can then apply to our model. So in this case, it's going to be a numeric range. It's going to, we'll call it, just so we all align here, we'll call it returned 2, because there's already a 1. The data type, we're going to make this a decimal number. And the reason why is because it's going to be a percentage. So it's going to go from 0 to 1, and we're going to increment it by 0.01, default 0. So this will make 100 values that go from 0.01, 0.02, all the way up to 1, which will be a percentage, which is this up here. We're going to add the slicer to the page. This is going to create the parameter. I'll talk more about what's going on with it on the right-hand side once it's added, because you'll see that. Remember, returned 2. Create. Okay, so it's created a return 2. That's right here in the bottom. It's not integrated with the model yet. Nothing's happening, but I'll show you how it's working, and this is where you're going to need to start to understand a few things. So let's move it down here so it's just the same. We'll kind of start lining things up, and we'll mess with that. As you can see, there's lots of things that are stacked up. But how does this work? So first, just to understand, it's pretty simplistic, but once you understand it, you can apply it to a lot of things. So first, let's just click this table. I'm going to click it on the right-hand side. And then I'm going to go, you can see it's generating a series, 0, 1, in increments of 0.01. So that's pretty straightforward, but let's just look at the table so you can see. We go to return 2. There it is, a whole bunch of values all the way sorting to the value that we're eventually going to get to. So let's do some basic stuff to this first. Let's go format it, so we know we want it to be a percentage. So let's click the return value. We want this to be a percent, so let's change this to percentage. For the decimals, we want it to be 0. And let's look at it. So there's also a value. Now let's add the front of it. Let's format this value the same way. We're going to go here, percentage, and we don't need the extra decimals. So we'll put this to 0 as well. All right, so now let's look at it. There you go. So what is happening here is this is first populated with a range of values that are found in this table, which we just converted. So there's all these percentage points. There's 100 of them. And it's just a row in a table called return 2. But it dynamically also is linked up to this slicer. So as you select and move this, it's going to change the percentage. So in this second calculation down here, return 2 value, we can see that it's just showing what I have up here in the top. And you can slide or you can enter. And so this is also an important thing. When you decide how to build it on your own, I wanted it to look really cool. I wanted it to look sleek. So I don't have this input. I have this kind of sentence over top and a gradient bar. I'm going to show you how to do all these things. But this is the foundation. So again, the first step is we're going to build the core, the functionality. Then we're going to go back and make it look good. So we're creating this percentage. The first step you want to do is integrate this into, or the second step is after you've created it, it's not linking to anything, it's not doing anything. And it's not a model creation we need to create, but calculations and measures. And they're going to keep refactoring based upon whatever's selected here. So let's look at that. And we'll look at it in this method right now by choosing to make a table. So I'm going to make a blank table, and we're going to create this on the left-hand side. It helps us be organized. So I'm going to go to store, And let's close this up. I'm going to add the store. And then with the store, let's just do these basic values first. So we're going to go to calculations, sales, and I'm going to add the sold amount. This is the current state. And then I'm going to add the returned. So we have sold, returned, and the return percent. And these are all the current state things. So we can see right now there's about a 37% return rate. Here's the individual store's return rates. But now let's start to recalculate how these things work. So what we can do to kind of show how this goes is in our model, well, how about this? I'm going to first organize some stuff so you can see how that process works, because we're going to make new measures. I want the ones I have to be organized. So these ones that are already functioning, I'm going to put them in a folder called what if 1, because that's already there. And then we're going to be building new ones. Okay, so with what we just created with returned 2, let's add that percentage into this value. Simply click it. You can click this one or this one. I'm choosing this one because it's going to keep that table kind of squared away. So what are we looking at here? Again, let's just look at the data. As I change this value, it's sending a new what if return percentage to this table, but it's not yet changing or making anything new. So we're going to set that up. Again, it's about the core functionality step by step by step. Let's make these values just a little bit smaller so everything will fit on the screen. We're going to go to values, set this to 8. We'll go to column headers, set this to 8. Just making more space. Okay, so we have our returned, sold, returned, and it's important to understand net because that's going to be a part of this process as well. So when we're going to add that, we're going to go to, let's find it here real quick. Net sales. Just to talk through, because we're going to do a variance of net sales change. That's what this is happening. Again, as I change this, increase it, the net sales change is calculating the difference between the new net sales. So we'll come back to this visual. Let's move it so it's organized. Sold, returned, and the net of the current state. And then we have this new return to. And this, we'll call it, you can always rename things by coming in here. What if? We'll just call it 2. Again, name it the proper way in your model, what you want. This is about setting up the core functionality first. So 22%, again, is changing, it's working. Okay, cool. So now we want to start to calculate the new returned amount, which is shown here. And it's shown at an aggregate level. Again, if the return percent changes to 68%, that means all of a sudden this new return changes to 852,000, or I can see it per store, how it's changing. And we want to do that calculation. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to make a new calc. And again, I'll organize these calculations in what if lab. So we'll make a first let's just do this. Return value 2. Well, that already exists. So I'm going to make a new measure. I'm going to say what we want to do is take the sold amount and multiply it by the percentage returned to get the new percentage returned. So I'm going to take sold amount times returned to, oops, sorry. We're going to take return to value. And let's just create this first. All right, so what is happening here now? So what should be happening, let's call it, we'll call this returned to amount. And let's just add this. We'll keep it right here. So this now, because the calculation is saying take the sold amount multiply it by our returned to percentage value, and it will yield this on whatever level of the model. So as we take this slider and change it, it's working. Look, what if percentage, 38%, it changes the returned, and that's all happening now. So it's starting to function with the table. And again, we're going to show you how to go from something like this to make it look awesome and sexy like this on the left-hand side. But let's just keep building out the idea of how this thing can be fully integrated. So we have our returned to. So now we're going to say, okay, well, what's the new net? A net is you take the total sales minus the return. So let's make a new calculation. And we're going to say, take the sold amount and subtract this returned to amount. And this is going to be new net to. Again, you'll want to name them how you want to name things, so it makes sense. And look, now our previous net was 464,000. Now we can see the net over here is changing. It increases as the return percent decreases, and it decreases as the returns increase. So it's working. And then finally, what about the net variance? How much is it changing holistically for each one? Right here, the overall net. So what we're going to do is we make a new measure. And what we're going to do for this one is say take the net sales and subtract the new net to. And we'll call this new net variance 2. Interesting title names, but it's just so you can get the idea of how this functions. Come over here, I'm going to add it. And check this out. Now this is changing, 376. So we've built the core. Again, what is this doing? If we look over here, you can see you drag it, it's changing the what if return percent. You're then now getting a new return number. You can then calculate the new net and then finally the delta. And there's all kinds of cool formattings you can do with here with the values as well. With bar chart formatting, data bars, conditional formatting in the background. Look at the file and look how this is set up. Because the next part of this tutorial, now that we have the foundation built, is to say, how do we get from this to something cool like this? Because this experience level of making good looking dashboards is just critical and foundationally important. So let's dive into that step now. There's a couple of things. Okay, so we have our slicer here, or our parameter, and it's working. It's changing the values. It's doing what we want as expected. How do we get these next level things to happen? Okay, so first, I wanted to have a gradient bar here so I could just subliminally incorporate or inform the users like, hey, red's bad. The more percentage is bad, the less is good, and have it correlate. Color correlation is critical. It just always shows this percentage changing, this is changing, what's good, what's bad. So to do that, I kind of did a little hack. If you just go to any column, and I'm going to say, the goal is I just want to get this picture of the bar so then I can use it in this visual. So if I go to column, say totals, actually we'll do cell elements, background color. I'm just picking something random. We're going to go and pick gradient, add a middle color, and all I'm going to do first is I'm going to put these values here where actually green is good, red's bad, yellow in the middle. And guess what? All I did, I took a picture of this. I just took a screenshot and then I trimmed it, and I have this bar as an image, and you save it. And then you go to insert image, and boom, it shows up. So now here's some settings for it. You can go to the actual image itself and put a few image styles onto this with the scaling and the fit. So normal, it's not going to necessarily fill up the whole thing. It's just going to be a hard snapshot. Fill is going to take up the entire space. So that looks pretty good. And fit, it just fits the whole thing perfectly, actually. So I chose fit. What we're going to do is take this image and we'll eventually line up things very specifically. But first, we're just going to get the generalness of this thing laid out. So when I add to the canvas, I can also use the up and down arrows to kind of move it left or right and get the general gist for how this bar is going to move. So I'm just dragging it. Again, while you're doing it, you're going to want to perfect it. So what I mean by perfect it is you want to get detailed where this is lining up perfectly, this is lining up perfectly to your liking. And again, you can click something individually and move it. We're going to stack multiple visuals together. So we have this bar, and there's also an important thing we want to do called, the maintaining the layer order of something, because all these things are going to be stacked up. So I'm going to click this, and I'm going to go to Format, send this to the back. I want the actual slider to be at the very back. This, I'm going to Format, Align, bring to front. So these two things are set up that way. Then within the options, you're going to keep doing this as well. Click it, go to Properties, Advanced Options, Maintain Layer Order On. That is a very key thing. Come to this visual, Properties, Advanced Options, Maintain Layer Order On. You can see that they're on. This is how these things are going to work. Clicking that button's very important as we go to the next steps of this thing. Okay, so we have a sliding bar. It's changing stuff in our data model. Don't worry about when you click things in Power BI Desktop, because it has to show the visual when you're clicking on it, which is why when I click this, it sends it in front of this. But what we can do to try to minimize that experience is we can set some settings up. So we're going to go to Size and Style, Background Off. So even now when we're clicking it, the background's not messing up, it's not overwriting it. And let's just go to these other sections as well. So we're going to go to the slicer header, off. And again, these things keep changing as you move things around. Font color, just make it white. And that's about as bare bones as we can get to this thing right here. So now we have a slider, and there's other properties that you can choose as you want to. You can always click this and go to the slicer, the slider, change the color, make it red, whatever you want to do. Red means kind of bad. I kept it black, as this kind of thing will just make the white pop even more. But again, your choice, make it as you want. So what we have here now is we're focusing on the slider. We're going to move away from the input value. But again, maybe in your design you want to keep the input value. We'll keep it there. You certainly can. So how do we do this next part of it? Well, it's going to be two other visuals. We're going to have simplistic text, and then we're going to put a KPI over that text. There's two ways you can do it. I'll show you. But really, I like the text in this KPI version the best because it just allows the conditional formatting to happen of the number itself changing. So that's what we're going to stick to, because we want to see this number change color as we move this thing up or down. So let's make a sentence. So insert a text box. I'm going to say, what if the return % was adjusted to, and we're just going to do a placeholder, some question marks. I think I want the size of this to be 24, if I remember right. DIN 24. So we're going to set this up, and now we're going to make a few adjustments to how it looks. We're going to want to have I'm making the plan is to make this whole thing in the back black. So I'm going to make this background black as well. And the reason why not transparent is because I'm going to want to cover up this little square box. So I'm going to set this to black. We're going to choose the colors we want here. So I want this to be yellow. What if the return making it red, because red's bad? What if the return, and also bolding these two key sections. What if the return % was adjusted to some other value? So let's take the rest of these, make it white, Take this, make it white as well. Okay, so we're getting closer. Now let's minimize this. And we're going to move it. We're going to move it right over this guy to where we want it. Again, there's lots of abilities, lots of things you want to do to line stuff up. But look, it's starting to take shape. So what if the return percent was adjusted? We don't know the value yet. But, and again, it's overshadowing that. It's showing up. And that's just expected right now because that's literally just how it has to work. When you have this set up, but once we publish it, it will override it and you won't see that. So have no worries there. And I'm just going to kind of cover this up like so. That's going to look real good. Okay. So, and again, you can move this around. You can really adjust the level of it. This one's a little bit lower, however you want that to be. But now let's get the next part is the KPI section. And then we're going to make the whole thing with the shadows. So it looks like a button. So let's make the KPI. And if you remember, we have this value, the return to value. I'm going to add it. And it's right there, the KPI. So we are going to strip this thing down. The background, we will turn it on, actually make it black, just to help cover up more stuff. The category label, we don't want that. So very simplistically, now we have our value. Let's go to the size and properties and the padding, because I just want to decrease this. So I have as much minimal space as needed to just really work with this thing here. And let's change the value. So we're going to go to the call out value, and you can see we can pick a font. So let's do it. Now we're going to choose this gradient scale. And this is the same process you'll go through if you want to change the color of this too, and it will match exactly with the bar. So you're going to go to the call out value, click the conditional formatting. We're going to say, set it up on a gradient, and we're going to add a middle color, and we're going to do it based upon the calculations, and we have it return to value. So it's going to be a hard-coded set. We're going to start it at 0, then it's going to go in the middle to 0.5, and at the far end is 1. Red is really bad, 0 is very good, the middle is yellow. So now the gradient is going to calculate based upon this set. And actually, let's apply this and see what happens, because we might get a problem, but let's just see. Okay. Actually, we don't. It works perfectly. So as we move this, look, it changes the exact color with what's down there below. This is a cool way that you take this image and you just link it all together with this color. So now let's move this over top into this section. So we want to set the font and everything the same. So again, we have the call out value is DIN, and we chose 24. In this case, I'm going to make bold and underlined. And this is where you can really dial it in, set the box up kind of as you see fit. We're going to put it right over top of this guy. And what we actually need to do for this one is, because it's going to be overlaying, is we want to have this background off. And look, now it starts to fit right in there. Use your arrow keys, move it in, and again, you can really dial it in. But as we have that, look, it's changing. What if it was adjusted? What if it was adjusted? There you go. You have that set up. Again, dial it in the formatting exactly as you like, and you'll get it to look something like this. Now let's add the final component of the overall shape of this thing too. But what we should do here, I think actually will be helpful if we turn the background of this, put it to black. Yeah, that's just going to help it even more. And now what we do is we create, and these little differentiations are fine, so we're going to have something that covers it up. But what you'll do next is you'll go to insert and you'll do a shape. And you're going to make this a rectangle and kind of cover up the general space that you want. We'll dial it in a little bit. And we're going to take this shape and I'm going to make the canvas settings a little bit bigger. Custom width 1350, just so we can see the shadows and how this stuff's working exactly. So we have this shape, and then we're going to turn the background for this one on for sure, and it's going to be black. But actually, we don't. I just remember this. We're going to want to do, in the shape style, there's something called fill. And in this, we're going to turn the fill to black. And the reason why is because as we round the corners, I just love rounded corners. I think it looks real sharp. It will change with the fill. So put this to the desired way that you want it. You know, whatever percentage kind of you feel. And we have this value. Now let's take this, format, send to backwards, send to back. Whoa, it's coming together. And now you kind of dial in the sizing of things. Take this, you can see it's not quite lined up, so move it down. And you'll make your own visual like this, dialing in the sizing of things to fit the screen that you want. And as you move this and you select it, you do see it in Power BI Desktop because that's how the developer view behaves. You're going to see things. But as soon as you publish it, you're going to do two things. So we're going to make sure that we have, again, for every visual, properties, maintain layer order on. And then to make it even easier, you can select everything, copy it, and then right click and go to group and group it together. This will allow you now just to move this like it's one visual. That is cool too. Literally, we just built it. What if the return percent was adjusted to 94%? Boom, we're moving it around. Oops, sorry. We're moving it around. We can click the slicer. Oh, it's because I have that layer order thing set up. You can move the slicer. It's changing. It's moving the values. It's changing everything we have set up there. And now, if you add KPIs, the total, these are simply just cards that have gone through a formatting. If you want, check out this video that shows how to format cards. It will be very helpful. And there's another video, I'll send it right now as well, that I've created for how to format these tables. So you can get the detail of formatting cards and tables. But for the gist of the visual, if we just bring our calculations on the table now where we say, okay, well, the returned to and the new net and the variance, and let's change it to the new KPI card. And just to make these call values visible, we'll make these things smaller. And again, there's a video that I show you how to do all the formatting for these. But essentially we can see as you build KPIs, check out this video for the KPI visual, it's clutch. It will move, it will adjust. So now we're saying, okay, here's this. Boom, the new net sales, the new net variance. Is it getting worse? Yes, it's going down, it's getting bad. Okay, the table, same formatting things apply. And we've just created a full what if scenario. Enjoy this, use it. And again, once you publish it to share with your users, this level of interaction will just be flattened. And you'll have the experience like what I showed where it's seamless. There's no boxes popping up, but as a developer, you're going to see these boxes because those are the things we need to work. So this is cool. You now are equipped with the full what if scenario tool belt to build this into your model. Hit me up with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Enjoy this. Again, subscribe. I appreciate your support. I'll keep sending you more content so you can keep improving your Power BI skills. I'm here for you. If you have any comments, just let me know. Y'all have a good day. Take care. Bye.